Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Perhaps for the last time on this particular podcast, which, of course, I haven't done for ages. The reason why I'm putting this particular episode up today is because for quite a long time, and I mentioned it before, I had thought about doing some sort of like sex/dating podcast for Ireland, sort of Irish specific for Irish people and their sensibilities. Not that I think that they're uniform or anything. Anyway, long story short, I wanted to find somebody to do it with, and it's just by virtue of the fact that I'm in New York a lot. I thought if I could find an Irish woman that was living in New York, we could partner up and do this sort of Irish sex/dating podcast. So there's a relatively new comedian called Katie Boyle from the Meath Dublin border, who I've gotten to know a bit over here in New York, and I thought I would ask her. And she was very open and honest about the fact that she wouldn't consider herself to be any sort of an expert on the topic, but that she would be delighted to help me go on the journey of finding things out, learning about things, being funny about things that perhaps some Irish people find difficult to talk about, or also being funny about things that people are very open to talking about. So I said, well, let's give it a shot. And as an experiment, we banged out an episode yesterday, which is essentially us trying to figure out what type of stuff we'd like to talk about, and also figuring out if we're, comfortable with each other, figuring it out, if it'll work. And so I'm just going to put that up here on the Des Bishop podcast, in the hope that perhaps this may become a thing, because, well, I really just needed a bit of help with the Des Bishop podcast anyway, so it would be great to have a partner. Timing-wise, it's still not ideal because I'm actually going to Ireland on Saturday week. But I'd like a lot of feedback on what people think about this, about the potential for this to become a thing, and then we will explore further. So anyway, Katie Boyle, who is at Katie Boyle Comic, Katie, on Instagram, is my partner in this particular discussion, which is very much an exploration on whether we think it's a good idea to have an Irish sex dating podcast. So have a listen. I need to ask you, how do you feel about that thought that there's a lot of sex podcasts, a lot of them are here in the United States. Don't you think that like Ireland needs its own one in terms of just Ireland's just that little bit different?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think people are very vocal about sex here. I think people are a little bit more not as vocal maybe back home.
Are you afraid to say that? I mean, you're allowed to say that.
Yeah, I think we're getting better and getting more comfortable. But I definitely think since I moved here, my friends here are much more loud about their sexual experiences. And my friends back home would only tell their close friends. But here it seems to be people just talk about it and do what they want. And there's more casual sex and that's okay. But I feel like at home, maybe my opinion with a lot of the girls that I know is that sex being casual is just to eventually lead into a relationship.
Yeah.
So I think we're starting to get a bit more open.
Don't you?
Well, that's... Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but that's something I wanted to talk about in regards to the fact that she said that they think a guy going down on a girl is disgusting, right? But it's totally okay. And then so that made me think about Irish women and masturbation and shame. Like it's still... That's the next generation and they're still mortified by it. And over here... women, have sex to come, but it seems like back there it's definitely more for the man. And the more I talk to my friends, they just have I wish we got more open. We were as open with like female orgasms as they are here.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I would like to spread the word about.
You'd like to spread the word about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but I mean, I absolutely, I totally do want to get into the, just like whatever, like advice and people's experiences, and we can chat to, people along the way. But I do think that I think maybe, and this might be a judgment on my behalf, if you came at an Irish-centered sex podcast with the same openness and frankness as the Americans do, maybe I'm wrong. I think some people would struggle with that.
Yeah.
Do you think, or maybe I'm wrong?
Um.
I only go on the example that definitely Irish people aren't as comfortable with like sexual material on stage.
Oh yeah, I totally. And I just wonder again, is that just that kind of little bit of shame, or I think you're right. I do think you're right, but I think if people can get more if they could get more comfortable talking about sex, then it would benefit better for relationships, right? So I do agree. It is a bit much over here though sometimes.
You think it's too much?
So sometimes, well, I'm trying to be better, but I was like, for an example, I was out with a group of girls I was in an area where there's a group of girls I know not that well, and one of them was shouting in the place about how she had pegged this guy that we knew, and my automatic thought was, wow, that's very private. I don't think you should say that out loud. But then I thought, oh, is that because I'm Irish? I think that's private. But I just felt sorry for the guy because we knew his name.
Because I mean,
and I didn't know her well enough, whereas usually you would just share that information with your close friends. So it just, it made me think, is that like an Irish thing that I feel very uncomfortable that you're shouting about pegging someone? But
I don't know either. I mean, I do think possibly that's like a breach of trust. I mean, it's such an old term, but it is kissing and telling.
Yeah.
Which, another thing we can talk about is kissing and telling inappropriate.
Yeah.
But that is an interesting topic. But I just find that your journey is very interesting because not only have you come from Ireland to New York, but you've come from Ireland to New York and found yourself in the New York comedy scene, which, not that the comedy scene is particularly important as some sort of cultural thing to experience, but it is a very open and...
Yeah, exactly. It's like I've gone 50 years into the future sometimes. But I do think since I've come here, I've learned how to orgasm, which was great. I don't know that was
you didn't know that?
And only recently orgasmed during sex for the first time. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, and that was my issue. It's just a comfortability thing. So, because I just don't feel comfortable, and that's again maybe, I don't know if that's me or an Irish thing. But then I talked to a lot of my girlfriends back home, and they said had a similar, that they feel they didn't really know what orgasming was. They didn't masturbate. They didn't so then it's even uncomfortable with the guy. They're just kind of like just doing it for him to have fun, and that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting because I did a routine years ago about female masturbation.
Yeah, that's great.
The lack of...
I love it.
The lack of comfortability in Ireland. Well, I did it, Jen. I didn't say it was... I don't think... I have to find that routine. I actually can't find it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that... I said specifically Irish women. I think I was kind of just saying women in general, but just basically... the comfortability of men, just be like... Yeah,
sure. Men can just be like, oh, well, it comes back to my sister, and just because she's so young, it really irritates me that all those guys those age would be like, oh, yeah, wanking is just, it's like easy conversation, but then how come it's not the same with women?
Exactly.
Yeah, it should be. And she was so horrified when I was like, no, you should go, we should explore that first. And she was like, end of conversation. No, that's disgusting. So...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows where that's coming from? I mean, and like, I don't want to get into the conversation about what's an appropriate time to experience any of these things. I don't know. I mean,
well, she's nearly 17. So
yeah. Listen, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Well, but still, that's, I'm 28, and there's friends of mine now this age back home who are only kind of figuring out like, how to orgasm. And then there's guys who, just because the woman doesn't know, and then the woman's very frustrated, they're not delivering. So it's and like they're mad then because they have like a female blue balls, but like I think if Irish women specifically knew their body better, then the sex would be better and everybody would be happy.
Yeah, which is another conversation I'll definitely have about not about blue ball. I mean, blue balls, first of all, I think is a strange thing. I think people think it's like this pain or something, but I tried to have this conversation with Nikki Glazer and Bonnie McFarlane recently, but I love Bonnie, but she was just too in the mood to like joke around, so we couldn't like get into the meat of it. about the who's responsible for what, like in those situations where does a woman not want to do anything, fine, or is she pretending not to want to do something but she wants to push it? And like I think most women you talk to, they all talk about that different. Like sometimes it's like a no, sometimes it's like I want him to push a little more or whatever, very complicated conversation. So I'd love to talk about that too, perhaps with a few other women in the room, just about their different experiences of guys and their pushiness or otherwise.
I definitely have a rule system.
Oh, you have a rule system?
Yeah, so I don't feel guilty. So there again, it has to go back to the Irish thing.
No, but I think a lot of women have that.
Well, even I had, this is so funny that we're actually talking about that, because I had a friend recently where something ended with a guy, and I said it was just so weird because he was so generous in sex.
He was so
generous. It was all about me, that I was so surprised that he kind of was confused on his feelings, and it didn't work out. But I guess I associated his generosity sexually as him really liking me. And then she said, I think you gave it up too soon. And I was like, okay, now you've just managed to blame me on this.
Who said
a friend of mine, a girlfriend.
American friend.
An American friend, actually, but from an extreme religious background. So, and then we argued it out, and I said, and then she apologized, and she said she didn't mean it like that, but it was still an interesting. I was like, I'm so surprised that was because I don't think it matters when you really do have sex, and I made him wait 2 months. So
2 months, and you gave it up too soon?
Yeah, but he did live in a different state, so he had to physically, like the first weekend we visited he didn't, and then the second weekend we did. But I do have like a time limit where I like to, just so I don't feel guilty.
Well, let's talk about the rule system. It's a good title for a podcast. It's a good title for an episode. That's why I like this subject.
3 dates or 3 weeks.
3 dates or 3 weeks before you have sex.
Yes, because anytime I've done it sooner, I've either ended up in a relationship with someone I don't really like, and it's just because of the sex, and I've confused the emotions. Or if they can't last past the second date, they're probably only doing it for sex. And then if I like them more, then there's no point.
Interesting. No, I mean, I think a rule system is good.
Yeah.
Only because I think sometimes if it turned out that you had like a passionate fling with somebody that you just met, that can be okay. However, there's every chance that it's not okay, in the sense that like you may never see them again.
Yeah.
So I think it's smart to have the 3-date rule, or whatever anybody's rule is.
Yeah, and it's not like I always had that. I have had one night stands, and I have ended up in a relationship from having sex too quick, and then being like, oh, that was just infatuation, not love. And then I kind of ended up in this messy relationship. So that's just a system that works for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to have a system to a degree. I mean, I think it's fine to break it. And I think I've witnessed the struggles of people with their sticking to the rules or not. But I think in general it's smart, just in the sense that, and this doesn't come from a place of shame, but I just think that men will pursue it, whatever goes on in their body with the testosterone. Men will pursue it past the point of rational thought. And and they will have good intentions. Like I know guys are assholes, blah blah blah, but a lot of guys will do it with good intentions, but like they will change fast.
Yeah.
So even though I don't think, women should have more responsibility, I mean, I do think it's smarter for women to have a rule system, because I think there's a greater chance for a woman to get hurt than a man.
Yeah.
So it's smart to have it.
I think for me anyway, because I love love. So I'm like, and then I definitely am a person who will like fall in love very quickly and then out of it very quickly, but I like people. So it's and I develop relationships very easily. So for me, the system is good. If you're a person who is lovey-dovey, it's better, definitely. Because as well, when you have sex and it's great, it's hard to kind of be like, oh, is it because of the person or because this is really fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or then if it's really great and then you don't see them again, sure, that's shite. You feel shite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I wish I was like
I'm
that.
kidding.
I wish I was slutty. It'd be so much fun.
I'm kidding.
Because sex is great.
Well, you wish that so-called slutty behavior was okay in your own mind.
I wish that I didn't associate emotions with sex. I wish I could just
separate
be like,
them.
Okay, you can leave now. I got what I wanted. Especially now that recently I found out that sex is better than masturbation. Before, when I figured out So I had sex. Sex was like, well, it was okay. I was like, oh, I guess this is what it is. And then I found out about masturbation, and I was like, this is great. And sex was never as good as that. And then I had sex that was better than it, and I was like, ugh, well, this is my life now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it's like smoking weed and thinking, oh, wow, this is such a great feeling. And then doing some other stronger drug and being like, oh, God, weed is nothing.
Yeah,
Like, this is
right.
the real deal. Yeah, I mean, I think...
And I think, do you know what I think as well? But like, what I would love to talk about relationship-y stuff is that, I don't know why I just made up that word randomly, but...
Well, relationship-y stuff is fine.
But like, in a like people my age, I find that a lot of the guys who try to date me really overthink it. And really like, there's a lot of like not being able to communicate what they want, or even in my girlfriends, I see that a lot as well. I don't know if that's like a generational thing now, because everybody goes to therapists, or... I don't know, people seem to make things a little bit more complicated, or maybe it's because of online dating and there's so much choice that they're like, oh, is this the one? And they end up kind of just not going with it a little bit, I think.
Don't hold your thoughts.
Yeah, but they're scattered. That's the problem.
Well, it's okay. Be scattered today, and then we'll focus on all these things. It's just because we have to find out if it's going to be worth it.
Sure. It's interesting that you said where you were talking about Vodafone, because they had an advertisement when I was like 13, where, or maybe I was older, but it was basically that their signal is so good that this girl gives this guy her phone number, and then he never texts, and all her friends are like, oh, he probably didn't get them. He probably did text you and it got lost in the signal, and then you see later that he's just throwing the phone number in the bin. And it's just this ad about like, oh, he's not that into you. And I always think about that when I'm dating a guy. I always go back to that ad, because I'm like, well, if he really liked me, we'd be together. He's just not that into me. And I think of that ad.
You know, there's a book, right?
Well, there's the movie as well.
Oh, that's right. They made it into a movie.
I think the ad came out first, and I still go back to the ad before.
Yeah, but yeah, the book was definitely before the ad.
Oh, okay.
Because, the book. I did the Aspen Comedy Festival in 2005, and Greg Behrendt was the host, and he wrote the book with somebody else called He's Not That Into You, and it had been out for a while, but it was a big book at the time, and he was quite well known at the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like possibly the Vodafone ad was inspired by the book.
Well,
but for you,
they have really affected me.
But that's all right too, like, isn't it?
No, it's great. I love that, because you have to be realistic, and it's sad, but then you have to just be like, I guess
that's life, you know.
Yeah,
it's not really a reflection on you.
No, I don't think so either. And I think that's just it is either people like you or they don't, and if they do, you'll make it work, or if you don't really, you'll find all these petty excuses. So
I mean, it is more complicated now. There's so many options.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'm curious. I'm 43 years old. I was born in 1975. Like, I did a lot of, my early dating, like before even cell phones, and like the real, like, cell phone or like mobile technology really only affected the dating game, like, since apps, like, which is way more recent. So I've read, whatever. I come across articles and chats about how the apps affect people's behavior, and a lot of like conjecture, assumptions.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'd be curious for us to explore that for ourselves, to try to make sense of what's changed, how it affects people, what's healthy, what's not healthy.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it brings out, I think for a lot of people who are insecure, they really struggle with like texting now, or because anybody who's jealous or insecure and then they're in a relationship, that person they're dating has so much more. They can text girls, or they can go online. So that previous guy that I was really, really interested in, his previous relationship was really bad because his ex was so jealous, and she wanted to read every other text message she had with a girl, wanted to know who he had matched with on Tinder, and it just opened up this sort of toxic thing. Well, and look, that's her issue. But yeah, it just made me think of, God, if you're insecure, all of this stuff, it's just harder for people. Yeah,
and I think jealousy and how to deal with jealousy and how to deal with somebody else's jealousy would be a very good episode too, actually.
Yeah, because I actually grew up, I find I'm not jealous because I grew up with a very jealous mother. She was like abusively jealous, if that makes sense. So with me and my father. So I feel like I'm very healthy when it comes to that, because I learned how not to behave. But I see a lot of my friends now and things that I'm like, nah, you can't even let that into your head. But it's just interesting. You just have to really be like, okay, I'm good enough, and if not, well, sure, that's that.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I consider myself not jealous in the sense that I'm not inclined to be doing like looking at your phone. But I really don't want to know, though.
Well, this is it. Don't look, because then you won't get. If you start looking, then it's a rabbit hole. It's like what's that analogy? Oh, like you can't stop then. Like Pringles. Once you eat one, and you're
once
gone.
you pop,
Box
you can't
is
stop.
Gone. Yeah,
Pandora's
it's like that,
box.
Pandora's box. That was better.
Was that what you were looking for?
Pringles. I love Pringles.
Yeah, I mean, like
it's like giving yourself rules again. Yeah, if you have, I guess I have rules because I'm so afraid that I'll end up like jealous the way I saw with my parents' relationship. So I guess that's where I'm like, okay, never look at their messages. Never, even when the phone pops up, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you can't stop yourself from beginning to feel a little bit jealous if somebody is like.
But you can also communicate it, because then when you hear it out loud, like you don't need to get mad at them, but you can be like, oh, I feel like, do you fancy her? And then usually they'll be like, no. And they'll be grand. But if you don't say it and then it's months later and then you're throwing a kettle over them or a kettle at them because of something else. Like, it grows legs.
Yeah, because I always say, like, listen, like, I'm not really like a jealous guy, but I'm not going to lie. I'd rather not know. Like if you're hanging out with your ex-boyfriend and it's not a problem, I'd still probably rather not tell me. Yeah. Even though, and then they say, yeah, but I don't want to keep anything from you. It's like, yeah, I know, but
why I don't know won't hurt me.
I just don't need to know. But then they go, but then you're going to make me lie. And it's like, okay, I understand.
Yeah, like the guy that I was seeing came to visit me for a weekend, and it was amazing. But his ex-girlfriend also lives here, and she had texted him to hang out, and he had said, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, cool, like whatever, you're just friends. And he said, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, grand. But his flight got delayed, so he texted her and said, I don't actually have as much time with Katie, so I'm going to hang out with Katie. And she got really mad, and he got quite upset about it, and they've been broken up for 2 years, and apparently haven't had sex in 2 years. But he was still sort of, it was just a weird, bizarre thing where he was still trying to placate her. Like,
I would not involve my ex-girlfriend in a.
That's what, and you know what, she was getting mad. She was like calling him lame and stuff, and he was quite upset. And I was like, look, we can see her if you want. It's up to you. But I do think this is a weird situation, and I think it would be okay if I weren't cool with it. But I am. But maybe think about that. And then he was like, yeah, I just want to make everybody happy. But yeah, it was weird. I don't know. It's like if you're 2 years out of something, why? That's another thing. Friends with exes. Why do you need to be friends with an ex?
Yes, well, that's a great topic. Friends with an ex. I mean, I have reasonable relationships with my exes in that, except for the big one, which was a bad breakup. I have like, I have a casually like amicable relationship with the majority of my exes, but none of them are like my I guess my friends. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm just trying to think. No, I'm just trying to think right now. Have I developed well, I am very close with one ex, but I mean, it was always long distance anyway. It was like never really like together, but we had like a strong connection and we've remained very close. But in saying that, we have not remained not apart. Like sometimes when we hang out, we still get together.
Yeah.
So it's always been like a semi-sexual thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but not always. Like she was with somebody for years and we never did anything.
Yeah.
Just remained friendly. But it was always kind of like weird. Positively weird because she was always separate. I had relationships in the interim. She had relationships in the interim. But it was always like, you're that person far, far away, and we have feelings for each other. So other than her, I don't think I have like a strong friendship.
But even then, you still hooked up from time to time.
So yeah. So she's an exception to the rule because she's not really like an ex.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
We never actually, well, I guess there was one period of time where it was like a fuck you situation from her to me. But in general, it's always been either like casual friendship or relationship.
Yeah.
But my actual like proper like full-time relationship situations, I'm very amicable with all of them except for one, but I am not friends with them.
Yeah, and I think being amicable is great, but I can't pronounce that word. But still, I don't know. I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Well, that's a good topic.
Yeah.
I like that as a topic.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have some good topics.
I think so too.
I mean, I had a situation recently and I needed to talk to somebody. And sometimes I have weird situations where, because of the time difference, I'll have to pick like a certain location. So I'll have to go, who is in LA? Because it's midnight here and I need to talk to somebody. Yeah. You know, and I can't call Ireland, and I don't, you know.
I've done that before. I've stayed up till like 5 a.m. just so I can like call my stepmom and be like, oh, he did this. Oh,
right. Okay. Yeah. So not that long ago, I called, she's not an ex, but somebody I had like a fling with, you know, an intense enough fling. And I mean, we didn't really maintain a friendship afterwards, even though there was no breakup. I mean, it was a fling that was never, like, from the get-go, it was established that this is just like a thing we're going to do for us, you know, for fun. But, you know, we're in the same business and this is not going to be a thing. And that's what it became, and it was fine. But at the same time, we didn't stay in contact.
Yeah.
But we haven't completely lost contact in that you like the odd Instagram pic, and you're very much aware of each other's lives, you know, because you're in
social media.
Yeah, you're in a similar business, you know, and I mean, certainly I wouldn't be speaking ill of her, and she definitely wouldn't be speaking ill of me. But anyway, she was one of the first people I thought to call. Even though this situation was about another woman, I never thought for a second that she would be funny about it. And I didn't think that, like, I would be, you know, uncomfortable telling her. Yeah. And it worked. She was great, actually. She saved me, you know. This motherfucking video, man, gets stopped by the close. No, it keeps filming. Thank God. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do this visual, but my battery is low. But I'm sure it'll hold.
But back to that. That's really great that you were able to get good advice from her, and that you did reach out and talk to somebody. That's good, right?
Yeah. Well, I was in that situation. I was desperate. I actually told her that we might be doing this, so I thought, because. Yeah, I mean, I nearly gave away information that people could figure out who it was, but so I stopped myself there, because I don't want people to know.
Yeah,
but certainly, I told her that we were going to do this, and that she would be a good person to get on with us at some stage. So anyway, I think that's a good topic: jealousy, and exes, and
communicating and. Emotional intelligence as well. I just
we'll definitely have
something about that recently, and I was like, wow, so many people don't know.
We'll have to get an expert in.
Yeah, that'd be so great.
We'll have to get an expert in about that. Are you comfortable with the fact that it's your side profile the whole time? I didn't mean to set it up that way.
Yeah, that's okay.
Should I have moved forward so that you would be a bit more like not?
I think it's fine.
Cheating the camera, and the fact that I'm like sitting cross-legged, and
it looks like the Late Late Show. You look like Gay Byrne.
My kitchen is in view.
I forget the new guy who does it.
Ryan Tuberty is his name.
For years. I think it's funny as well.
You could tell that you're not worried about your Irish career.
No. Definitely here for the American audience. I think as well, if we do it, like, I just would like, I guess, Irish women to know as well that I'm just figuring it all out as well. Like, what I say isn't necessarily reflecting I do this where I make up words, and then I'm not 100% sure if that's the right word, but you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily reflect all of them either, just what I've experienced and what my friends tell me.
Well, no, I think I'd like that to be the vibe of this, that we're just figuring it out. Like we could call it Figuring It Out, but maybe we'll find another title.
I thought it was funny when you asked me about doing the sex podcast, and I was like, well, I've never done like wild sex stuff like anal beads and stuff, so can I be the inquisitive one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the idea would be I can't think like a woman, particularly a woman of your generation, which is important, you know, because like I have a lot of experience with, you know, people my own age. I mean, I've been with some people your age too, so I can see that there's a difference, but also I can't put myself in the mind of I just don't have the same questions that a woman has, but I certainly want to know what those questions are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I assume vice versa.
I think questions that I would definitely like for sex is sometimes I'm like, The older I get a little bit better, but I think as a woman, like I get scared about like blowjobs because I've heard like some wild porn stuff, and I'm like, it just freaks me out. But then when I'm with a partner I'm fine. So probably that's why one night stands freak me out, because I'm like, oh, I'd have to be way more sexy than I am.
Yeah, well,
I need to catch them on my personality first.
Yeah, plus they're not safe. You're not comfortable.
They're not safe. Yeah, and the thing is, I was even thinking, I was very judgmental about. I told you this about choking, and I was like, oh, it's definitely not my thing. And
I've been joking about that in my show about the choking.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's bigger here.
Yeah, no, yes, same. I have like a little bit about a guy choking me. But
oh, really?
Just because he choked me when we were kissing and we had clothes still on, and I got really freaked out because
it's a little early. It's a little early.
Yeah.
Early for the choke.
Yeah. So I have like a little joke about how I think people do it too early. I think we should save all that.
What's your choke rule?
I think you should save that stuff till the relationship gets a little bit boring, not on the first night, because then it'll last longer. Because you're like, okay, let's do this wild thing now. That's my silly. But then when I was with the guy that made me come during sex for the first time, and I felt very comfortable with him. At one stage, he had his hand on my neck, and I thought, I wouldn't mind if he choked me.
Choke him, motherfucker.
But he didn't choke me, and I thought maybe that would be too far. But I was like, oh, I can see how when you're 100% comfortable with someone, you're like, oh, I'll try something. And I just guess I haven't been comfortable before, so.
Well, that's good. And also, you're saying, like, I want people to know that I don't, I mean, that's the whole idea is we're learning this. But also, my hope would be if people will contribute via text and all that.
That'd be so great.
Well, that's going to drive it.
Yeah, it'd be so great, because as one thing as well, I would love to know more about women and masturbation toys. Wait, what's it called? Like
sex toys.
Sex toys. Do Irish women get them, and do they? Because it wouldn't even have occurred to me.
Well, we're going to do at least an episode with Sex Shopper, if not have Sex Shopper. It's terrible that I always call her Sex Shopper, because her Instagram is @sexshopper, and I've registered her name before, but right now I can't remember her name. And I mean, it's embarrassing, because we've chatted many times about doing something like this. So I will hope to get her involved as much as possible, just because that is her. She has many opinions, by the way, but that is her field.
No, but that's okay. This just made me think 2 of my Irish girlfriends live in Canada. And that's not important for the story, but I felt like saying it. But no, they came over here to visit me, and they were talking about sex toy. One of them had gotten a sex toy. Oh, I fucking can't think of the name of it. But it was so good that it made sex with her partner not as good. And she said she had to stop using it because she wasn't enjoying the sex as much, because it was just so much more pleasurable.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And it actually scared me off getting one, because I was like, oh God, I don't want these. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, well, it freaks me out a little. What if it's like amazing?
We can find out what that is, and we can discuss that.
Yeah, I must ask her what you got.
Yeah. So I think that's great, And I think, I would hope that, well, my 2 hopes, you can tell me what your hopes are.
Cool.
I have more than 2, but 2 potential hopes for this is, one, that Irish men and women both kind of like learn stuff from it, while at the same time being entertained about stuff that they see themselves in, or perhaps are shocked about. And then the second hope is that I learn, stuff that helps me to understand, not just sex, by the way, but, just because I've done a few other eps on my own podcast about like consent and women, and, learning about, like Me Too and everything that's changed, So I would continually hope that, I can keep figuring stuff out in terms of my relationships with women.
Yeah.
So those are my hopes.
I guess my hopes would be to demystify it a little bit and take away shame, and definitely for Irish women to be able to communicate more and understand their body more, I think, because that's what I'm figuring out myself.
Yeah.
So I would like that. I would like that conversation.
And that's nice to share that journey.
Yeah.
If you feel you're figuring it out yourself, then you're sharing it.
And then about sex as like the difference between casual and like lovey-dovey sex. Does that make sense?
No, totally. I mean,
like
that's a topic, really. I mean, I've had that discussion before. I mean, that really is a topic.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to be able to separate those emotions, or what kind of,
I want to get some people in on that one,
Yeah.
Because I think there's varied opinions on that,
Yeah.
I mean, it came up a little bit on Cutting Edge. I did Cutting Edge recently. with Brendan O'Connor. You know, you don't live there anymore, so you don't know, but
No.
it's just a roundtable discussion. Brendan O'Connor and three guests, and everything's quick, unfortunately, in a way, but the show works for what it is. But I guess podcasts are better at digging into that. But one of the quick discussions was about Tinder and the apps and how it affects, and casual sex versus love sex, and which is better. And there was somebody who's actually sort of found religion later in their life, just said that like sex in a loving marriage was just way better than the casual experience she had in the past. And then we were debating like about that. So at that time I remember thinking, I really want to explore that more, the concept of sort of like deep loving sex being better or more meaningful than casual sex, or can you separate the two, and can they both be great in different ways? And so I like that as a subject.
And I also think as well, because something I experienced was that I dated guys because they were fun but the sex was bad, but I still dated them. But recently enough I had something where the sex was like way more amazing than maybe the conversation. So I'd never experienced that before, and I was like, it was just interesting, like would I continue to see this person and hope the conversation got better?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally think that I think you're having sex a lot less than you're just hanging out. So I actually think, and I love sex, but I really think the sex is secondary, because you really can, like, I think it's easier to work on the sex than work on the personality.
Yeah, true.
Now, listen, you can fail. You can work on the sex, and it can just turn out to be a failed experiment.
Yeah. I did try to work on the sex one time with a guy who comes from a bit of a stricter Irish American, bit of a stricter religious background maybe. But he said when I would orgasm, it would hurt his penis. And so
it would hurt his penis?
Yeah, he would pull out, which is weird because guys have told me that that's pretty great and it's a good feeling. And he would pull out, and then I said, we have to, you have to make this work for each other. I need to orgasm too. And then he said, nah, you're just too much woman for me.
No, really?
He broke up with me.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a compliment, though.
I guess. But yeah, whatever for him, I guess he'd never felt a woman orgasm before, maybe.
Amazing.
I know I never reached that because he would pull it out, but it was fun.
That's amazing.
But I did definitely try to communicate what I wanted, and it ended in a bad result. But actually it's good in the long run, because
you have to communicate it.
Yeah.
That's numero uno.
Yeah, because even like I'd love to be really confident when it comes to like giving guys head or whatever, all that stuff. And I think, but I do always be like, okay, just let me know what you like, because you could be just down there doing your thing and they're like, this is shit. And then if they don't tell you, you can't fix it.
Yeah, well, I have a routine. Actually, in my latest special, I have a thing about ways for the bedroom, but I very much put it in the realm of the woman needs to let the guy know, because the women are more complicated. But I understand that women
I think they need to tell us too, because I had a guy, and I slept with a 43-year-old. It's not Des.
Jesus. They know what they're doing.
But no, yeah, but it was nearly too much. It was like, okay, like nearly like... nearly not letting it go with the flow, but he did say something about licking balls, and I got such a fright because I didn't know that was a thing you guys like.
Oh, really? Licking balls? Hey, come on, that's elementary, man. We need to talk. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not shaming you.
No, you shame. This is like late 20s, so I was like, wow. And then I told my girl.
Well, it's just a very sensitive area.
Well, I told my Irish girlfriends, and they were like, oh, I didn't know. But I told my American girlfriends, and they were like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? You didn't know that? And I was like, no. And my first thought that went through my head was like, oh my God, men are dogs. But then I was like, okay, get over it, do it.
Your first thought was correct. Men are dogs.
Yeah. But then when I did it, and it's like, okay, well, because it's, it's very attractive for the other person to be pleasured. So then it was fine. But I was like, why didn't anyone ever tell me? I've been in 3 serious relationships.
Yeah, I can't believe that you weren't told.
And they never told me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, it's nice when it happens, but it's not like the numero uno for me. But
I wonder, is that Irish men thing as well, where they're like a bit mortified to kind of communicate what they want, whereas American men are like, can you please lick my balls?
Well, I think American men are head pushers. I think men are just head pushers, right?
What is head pushing?
Oh
no, I don't like that.
I know. Yeah, I don't do it, but I think I heard a lot of women complaining about the head pushing. A lot of women complain about the head pushing.
That's so funny. I do, yeah. Sometimes I like to grab the guy's head just to be like, aha.
Get the fuck down there. That's
It's my
fine.
favorite thing.
That's fine. Well, because I feel
Not
like
grabbing the head, being eaten out, but
no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. All right, well, that's good then. I think we're good. I think we're going to be able to pull this off.
I hope so. This will be fun.
All right, well, we'll finish now, and then before you leave, we'll figure out what our first topic will be,
Cool.
and then we'll work on when we can do that and who will we ask to get, and begin the process then.
Fun.
So, there you go. Feedback. That's very important after this particular episode. We want tons of feedback. Des Bishop hits@gmail.com if you want to email me. What else do we got? At Des Bishop on Twitter, at Des Bishop on Instagram, Des Buffer on Snapchat, though I don't use that much nowadays since they destroyed it with that update. And Facebook.com/Des Bishop. Katie Boyle is at Katie Boyle Comic, Katie, at Katie Boyle Comic. Feedback. Thanks for listening, and we'll see what's going to happen in the future.